I see here that I'm joined by Dane. Dane, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to ask you to tell us a little bit about your role with Radisson Hotels.
Yeah, so I am the web analytics manager at Radisson Hotels. I work on our digital acquisition team, and I also work with our web content team. So I end up working both with a lot of our technology staff, people who manage our apps and our website. But then I also work with our digital marketers, and I work with the teammates that manage SEO as well as manage OTAs and email and social media and everything else. So I end up working with a lot of people throughout the organization, and and then I provide analytics and the support for all of those roles.
Awesome. Okay, so Dane, tell us a little bit about your experience at Radisson and what did that look like working for a hotel company when travel came to a screeching halt?
Well, interestingly, I actually didn't start until like after that. So I started in January 2021, which was interesting because I was basically starting at kind of just after the bottom. And for me, when I did that, I knew it would be a challenge. But one of the things that I really looked forward to is I knew at least, and especially from talking with people, I had the feeling that, it was really everyone was, it was going to be all hands on deck, but it was also going to be, people were going to be ready to do whatever needed to be done. And that people were going to be, we were going to have to be flexible. We were going to have to really try to, it's a cliche, but think outside of the box. I think sometimes as bad as the situation was, the upside to scenarios like that is it generates a lot of creativity and openness, and people don't necessarily rely on the past and what's worked because you can't anymore.
Right.
So that was kind of the situation, and we were also doing a lot of work because we were also separating our business at the same time. But
yeah, tell us a little bit more about that. So an additional surprise after you joined the team there at Radisson.
Yeah, so Radisson is a global business. We have hotels, basically across the planet, but we separated our Europe and Asia divisions from our Americas divisions. So now they're just after I started, we basically separated those, and they're basically operating as two completely separate companies for all intents and purposes. And for us, that required setting up brand new vendors. It required separate websites and separate analytics implementations.
And also, I would imagine, required quite a bit of creative, strategic thinking around how to approach privacy and consent management. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is correct. That's a huge thing for us, and obviously a very huge thing for the hotel, the hospitality industry. I think even more so than perhaps, an industry like retail or, some other industries where it's like, maybe your data is compromised, but, it's not great. But if your data is compromised by a hospitality company, like, is that somewhere you want to potentially, sleep? Is that where, you want to trust an organization like that? So I think it's extra important for the hospitality industry. And yeah, we had to, that's something that we really have to take into consideration, because we do have, not only do we have hotels in multiple countries, multiple continents, even in just our Americas division, but we also have, we have visitors from around the globe. So we need to be sensitive to whatever laws are, especially around data, whatever laws are in place, basically across the planet, making sure that we're following those, and that we're being very careful with data, careful with our customers' data. And it's not even just about laws. It's about making sure our customers can trust us, and making sure that we're doing our best for them to protect any of their private data.
So you're basically an attorney now, or at minimum a paralegal.
Yeah. Last year was a very interesting year. I've never done. I've been working in analytics for a little over a decade, but this is last year was the most time I've ever spent, being kind of involved in the legal sense of things, and needing to check, like, what we can record, and how we can track it, and if we need to remove it, and where the data is going, and what is considered protected data versus not protected data. Yeah, it was a very interesting year for me, and a lot of learning, but it's I do actually enjoy the law, so it was interesting and fascinating, but it was a lot of new work for me.
So taking all of those factors into account, what are some of the more innovative ways that Radisson has approached personalizing experiences, and then retaining or acquiring new audiences kind of coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah, so like one of the things that we're really trying to adapt on is, we're really trying to focus on our different segments and our different hotels in certain areas, and really trying to focus especially a lot on our regionality, because we have hotels in Canada, we have hotels in Mexico, we have hotels in the Caribbean and South America. And one of the things we did a lot within the past year is we've really been trying to focus on targeting the customers that are going to certain resorts, and making sure where our spend is going. And then in the past year, especially one of the things we had to consider was, with many of the pandemic regulations, in some cases, there would be no point spending marketing budget on customers from certain countries, because perhaps they couldn't even, leave the country or enter the country, or perhaps they couldn't even do it. They couldn't potentially do it very easily. So that's one of the things we've really been trying to focus on is which customers are going where, and then making sure that we're allocating the budget in a way that makes sense, and doesn't waste money on users that maybe will not be frequenting those locations.
So how dynamic have the teams needed to be around audiences? Did the audience segmentation strategy change coming out of the pandemic? Was that just at that time, and now it's kind of going back to normal, or there are some of those changes that have carried forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of the changes we've been making and adapting with, they will be either tools or processes that we will continue to use. And I think, again, kind of going back to what I was saying is, about kind of entering at that downtime, is it really generates a lot of like new ideas, new practices, new opportunities that we can keep using. One of the things, it was something that kind of started before I was there, but one of the things that we had started to do is, business travel is down, but one of the things that Radisson tried to focus on was youth sports teams that were still doing a lot of traveling in late 2020. And so that was a thing where it was like, oh, this is potentially a niche that's underserved. And we were able to capitalize on that. And then that's something that it's like, oh, that's something that we can continue to do, right? And so, with the whole marketing team, anything that we, we're trying, because it's like, I think, it can be really easy just to rely on, okay, this is generally how things work. This is generally what has worked in the past. And we'll just kind of, move things here and there, but when you really need to find that opportunity, you go, hey, what about, we haven't tried this thing, we haven't tried this thing. I know one of the things we're trying to do currently is we're looking at trying to advertise certain aspects of our business to certain niche customers. For instance, one of them is hotels where people can bring pets, or hotels that maybe have a floor or something, or a certain amount of rooms, and then making sure that customers can find that information. The customers that are looking for it can find that information, and making sure that we're utilizing some of these unique aspects. So like the segment of pet travelers, that's a significant portion of people, and making sure they know, hey, you can, these are hotels that you could potentially travel to and have your pets at, and making sure that they know that is
Yeah, there are a lot of COVID cats and a lot of pandemic puppies out there. We got to make sure we can bring them along with us on our travels.
Yeah.
I know flexibility is a huge theme too, coming out of the pandemic, and people just needed to know that, hey, everything's kind of up in the air all the time now, and that's become the new normal. Talk about how your team needed to weave flexibility into the customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, right? It's been everyone knows it's kind of been a chaotic 2 years, and it's depending on state policies, local policies, national policies. Obviously, the mask policy just came off on the federal level, but then it can all change, right? And so people might make trips, and then all of a sudden the whole reason for their trip, it could be canceled, right? And so we've tried to be very flexible with our cancellation policy, and making sure that if there is a reason, then people communicate it to us. They were able to get refunds. I think we're trying to back away from that a little bit more as things start to normalize. But for the past 2 years, we've tried to be especially flexible, just to really give customers that confidence and peace of mind. Yeah. And I think that's huge, right? I mean, you really want to get people through the funnel, and it's the last thing you want to do is you don't want people to hesitate, because they're worried, right? And if there's anything you can do to give customers that peace of mind and make sure that they, proceed to that next step and make that booking, that's huge. And, it's kind of like one of the reasons I don't know if you go to Target. I go to Target all the time now, or I've been going forever, but they've been really good with their red card. I just walk in, I give them my red card, and they don't even really ask me any questions anymore. And so then for me, when I make purchases, I know, hey, they're not going to hassle me if something breaks, or there's an issue. And so then it eases that hesitance from the customer. And so we're operating under that same principle.
I love that. I love it's all about kind of providing peace of mind for the customer. And something else that really struck me when you and I spoke earlier was you talking about how Radisson really runs like a startup. For a business that opened its first hotel in 1909, to operate in that way, that's really unique. So talk to us a little bit about that startup mentality that kind of powers the way that the teams, make decisions and operate.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily maybe been that forever, but it's something new now, especially post coronavirus, post pandemic, and everything. The business has really been reconfigured. I think we have streamlined in a lot of ways, and there's less. There's less bureaucracy, and there's more direct communication. One of the things we just did too is we just moved into a new office, and it's a smaller. We have a smaller square footage, but It's very flexible. You can just kind of book your own you can book your own desk, and so you might sit next to different people. There's not a lot of our staff does not have, offices with windows. It's a very open environment. Um, and it really feels like a young company. And I think, a lot of that is because when we split the businesses last year, one of the things we did all last year is we were setting up new vendors, um, reestablishing some of our infrastructure. Um, like I said, moving to a new office. It really is all. It really feels like a very like young company, and we're just everything just kind of feels new, and a lot of us are we're all like learning new things because we're all it's all hands on deck, and we're all just diving into these new projects. So I think it's a really, really good time for our company. And I think there's a really good mentality there.
Love that. So what's the team excited about for the future? What are some of those factors that we know is facing the hotel industry that we think are going to still kind of continue to come into play for 2022, 2023? What are you all excited about for what's headed your way next?
Well, we've got some really big things happening. Most recently we have new brand imprints. We have something called Radisson Individuals, which is it's kind of like our boutique brand label. So it's for kind of more of those artier type hotels. And then we're also launching something called Radisson Inn and Suites, which is our kind of our more like urban located version of like country inn and suites, where it'll be a little bit more cosmopolitan, I guess I would say. And so there's a lot of initiatives there on those things. And the sorry, can you repeat the question? There's something else I wanted to there's something else I wanted to say, but
No, yeah, for sure. Just what's the team excited about for the future? What's coming next?
Yeah. And then the other thing I forgot about is we're doing a lot of expansion into Latin American markets. We have a lot of new hotels that are signing on there and that we're opening up. And the other thing is, one of the things is we expect a lot more once restrictions open up, a lot of international travel. So with those new hotels and with people looking to potentially, get outside of their own country, that's going to be huge. And then also, what'll be interesting is to see when and how business travel bounces back. It might not be the same format as before, but I still think largely, I think everyone has recognized there's a lot you can do remotely. You can be very agile in that way, but I think people still also, because of that, they have worked from home. They have seen what doesn't work. And so there still is that utilization to like, sometimes you have to meet in person. It's like our new offices. We didn't just not have an office. We still have an office. We're just not going to be there as much. But I think for the purposes of sales, and especially those, when companies are working with other companies, I've seen it. I've done it. We have been able to set up those new vendors and those new relationships, but sometimes I feel like it maybe would have been a little bit easier if we were all in the same room together.
For sure. Yeah, our marketing team at TLM's actually, we have an offsite in a couple of weeks. We're all getting together just because we want to get together and be in person, and we're going to try and do that quarterly. So we can certainly relate to that. Okay, Dane, we have some questions streaming into the chat for you. And if folks have any other questions, we have a few minutes left to ask those questions to Dane about his experience at Radisson. But Dane, let's see here. For you mentioned a little bit about your regional strategy. What are some of the more interesting insights that you could share about, human behavior, how things vary say in New York versus in LA? You know, what are some of the tactics that your team is employing in certain regions of the country that work better than others? What are some of those notable distinctions that you'd call out?
Well, I think, one of the things is it really depends on I mean, there's a mix of factors, right? So sometimes there's things that depend on the customers. There's things that depend on the hotels, and then trying to find that right mix. So we have, some customers who are, you know, more budget oriented, or more they're traveling through locations. Then we have other customers who are making, weekend trips. And sometimes it kind of depends on the hotel and the location, and then what that hotel is who that market services, and then trying to allocate around that. So we have and then the different brands as well, and those service those different customers. So for us, it's really just trying to find that right mix of who's the type of customer using this hotel, what, how long are they typically going to stay, and just trying to find that right mix. And then, okay, how can we target those right people for the right places? And like I said, it's not even just regional. Sometimes it's the brand, sometimes it's where the hotel is. Like the hotel could be, we have hotels that are in downtown New York, and then we have other hotels that are located closer to the suburbs in New Jersey.
Sure.
So it really just depends on the brand and the what that hotel is, who that hotel might be servicing. But of course, everyone's welcome to go to any of the hotels anyway.
Of course. Okay. Another question: how do you stay on top of all of the changes in privacy, compliance, and information security? I know you touched on this a little bit earlier, but is there a whole team at Radisson that does that? But I feel like in the headlines, I'm reading news every day about some new privacy law that's rolled out in a specific state. Or so how does Radisson approach always staying compliant and staying ahead of all of those legal changes?
Yeah, that's obviously very important for us. We have kind of we have our technology director really stays on that, and then we also have a very strong legal team that is very active in making sure that they are overseeing everything in the right ways, and that they are approving everything that needs to be approved. I think we have a lot of very solid processes that are very thorough, that we need to go through whenever we are launching certain updates or certain initiatives, adding on new vendors. It's a very, very documented and thorough purpose that we try to make sure that we're covering all our bases. And that's important, right? Even though I said we do act like a startup, I think one of the good things to being the older company is that we also operate very professionally, right? There's there's a long history of we have a lot of very established employees that know how and what needs to be done, and we get a lot of really, really good guidance on following those types of laws and new updates.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Another question for you. What is your most favorite experience that the Radisson hotels provide to guests?
I think it's just the overall customer service. We have it's and I think it transfers down. We have it in the office as well, and the whole mentality is basically to always just someone comes to you, the general mentality is like, to really say yes. And like, if you have a question for me, like what can I do for you? How can I help you out? Let me make it happen. And I think that's the biggest thing about, our brand is we just, we want to be flexible. We want to do what we can for the customer, and we want them to have a positive, great experience at any of our hotels.
Amazing. Dane, any other insights that you'd like to share with the audience? We have a mix of folks who have CDPs, who are thinking about a CDP. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give to the audience?
The thing I've learned, I think, in all my time and in analytics and working with Radisson is, you always need to kind of make sure you're on your toes. You always need to be evolving. You always need to try to get a deeper picture of your data. And if you don't, someone else will. And if they will, they'll be ahead. It's ultimately a little bit of an arms race, and you need to basically be at hopefully as far ahead of the forefront of technology you can. And I think that'll help any company that does that going forward, if they can utilize data to its highest potential.
Fantastic. Dane, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you today. We love working with you and your team at Radisson Hotels, and love the really innovative approach that you all have to protecting your customers' privacy, putting that at the forefront while still maintaining a really positive customer experience. So commend you and the team's work in those efforts for sure. And I know everybody here enjoyed learning from you as well. So thanks again for your time today.
Yeah, thank you too. I appreciate it.